Let's face it, most people aren't making massive turkey feasts on the regular. And after 364 days of not thinking about it, it can be hard to get that bird just right. That's where Instacart, the holiday rescue app, comes in. From getting all the ingredients to prep a full seasonal spread to getting last-minute swaps in a turkey emergency, Instacart has everything a holiday host needs to save face and save dinner. And right now, if you download Instacart, you'll get free delivery on your first 3 orders and delivery in as fast as 1 hour. Offer valid for a limited time. $10 minimum per order. Additional terms apply.
It's time to get in the zone. Time to get in the zone with the 49ers Web Zone. This is the No Huddle Podcast with Al and Brian.
What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle Podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Brian Renick. He's Al Sacco. We are in that weird part of the year where Christmas is over, but it's not New Year's. It's just weird holiday time. We were both talking about how you kind of don't know what day it is, especially as at least for me, you know, I've got this week and next week off as a teacher. It's like the biggest perk of the job is winter break, if we're being perfectly honest. But the 49ers are preparing to travel all the way across the country to face the Washington Commanders in week 16, the 16th game of the season.
I can't believe it. I know. It goes by too fast.
It's wild. It's, and what's interesting is somebody posted something yesterday on Twitter in comparison of the NFL and the NBA in terms of viewership, average viewership. And somebody made a great point. The one thing the NFL has that no other league really anywhere has is just the urgency of every single game because there's so few of them, right? I guess you could say football in general, not just the NFL, because college is the same, but it does make it a unique sport. And it does make it like all of a sudden, like it feels like that Steelers game was just yesterday, and now we're almost at the end of the regular season. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just a blink of an eye, man. And this time of year, dude, I don't know what day it is. I guess it's Thursday. We're recording this. I don't know. And the way, like, it used to be, and I don't know why the weather shifted, global warming, whatever you believe, but it used to be like pretty in the winters where I live on the East Coast. Like you'd get snow and it felt Christmassy. Now it's 39, 40 degrees, gray and rainy, like every single day. Like it just sucks. So on top of like, you don't know what day it is. No, we've gotten a dusting maybe here.
Oh, wow.
It's end of December. So it kind of shifted now to like January, February, March are more like the snow months, and the holidays, we really don't get any. So that part of it kind of sucks. Cause I like a white Christmas.
I had to take my youngest to a birthday party. I dropped her off at a birthday party today. We left at 9:45 and it was 60 degrees already here in Northern California. I was like, what is happening? This is ridiculous.
Once the end of February hits here, you're like sitting in a corner with a drink rocking and you get like seasonal depression and it gets rough, man. I can't imagine staying here. In the coming years, eventually, as the family gets older, I think my wife and I will end up somewhere else, but all right, Brian, nobody gives a shit what I think about holiday weather. So let's talk about the 49ers, which I assume why most of you are listening to this show. We were talking last show about how when you have a season like this, it's just cool. You have all these individual accomplishments that are part of the fun of being a fan. It's cool to see your guys put up big numbers and be talked about for awards and that sort of thing. So it got me thinking about McCaffrey and just kind of the season that he's having. So I went back and looked, and I wanted to see what were really the other great running back years, at least in the modern era, that you could compare him to. And I came up with 3 players in 4 years. So first, here's where McCaffrey is currently. He's got 1,395 rushing yards. That's currently 4th all time in 49ers history. And he's got 1932 in terms of all-purpose yards. So is he going to break all these records? Where is he? So I went back and looked. So Frank Gore had an all-time season in 2006. He's got the most rushing yards of any 49ers player in a single season at 1,695. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry, 61 catches for 485 yards, So his total in terms of touches, 373, 2,180 all-purpose yards, which is the Niners record, 5.8 yards per touch, but only 9 total touchdowns. So that's a great year. Is it as good as McCaffrey's year? Well, let's keep going through and looking. Garrison Hurst, who, Brian, might be the most underrated running back in 49ers history. Didn't play long for them.
He gets forgotten.
He does. He had some amazing seasons. In 1998 was one of them. He ran for 1,570 yards, which is second only to Gore for the franchise. 5.1 yards per carry, added another 39 catches for 535 yards. His total yards, 349 touches, 2,105 yards, 6 yards per touch, 9 total TDs. Now, Craig had a great rushing season, third all-time for the Niners in 1988 at 1,502, 4.8 yards per carry, added another 76 catches for 534 yards, 386 total touches, 2,036 yards, 10 total TDs, 5.3 yards per touch. But 1985, I kind of feel like for Roger Craig was, you got to put that up there with one of the greatest years of all time because running backs weren't doing this yet. And what I mean is,
right.
So yeah, he had 1,050 yards, 4.9 yards per carry on the ground. So he had 92 catches for 1,016 yards. And in today's game, you're like, okay, that happens. Didn't happen back then. So for him to have that kind of a season was really special. 306 total touches, 2,066 yards, 6.8 yards per touch, 15 total touchdowns. So that's the most total touchdowns out of Gore, Hurst, and Craig. McCaffrey's on pace for 1,581 rushing yards, which would put him, where would that put him? Second? Yeah, that would put him second behind Gore. He's on pace for 618 receiving yards. And I did not add that up because I'm an idiot. I'm going to have to add that up. And he's got, as of right now, he's got 321 touches, 1,932 yards, 6 yards per touch, and 21 touchdowns. So if I add that up, his pace, he's 1,581 plus 618. That puts him at 2,199, which would give him the Niners record too. So he's on pace to be second in rushing, tops in all-purpose yards, and probably score the way Kyle uses him, 24 and 25 touchdowns. So
which
you
blows
can make the
away
argument.
The touchdowns.
Yeah, blows away the touchdowns. So I think Craig's season was special in the context of the era. Gore's was special in that he had no passing game to speak of, really,
right,
when he did what he did. But in terms of everything combined, this may very well be the best running back season we've seen in 49ers history.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he is firmly, I think firmly in the discussion for MVP, largely because again it has been a down year for quarterbacks. There isn't a quarterback that has, by far and away been leading the league in different categories and whatnot. There's no 50 touchdown seasons or anything like that. 5,000 yards, none of the things that we've really kind of seen from a lot of the QB MVPs that we've seen over the past, decade or so. It's interesting. This made me think about, I was having a conversation with my buddy Tim last Friday, and we were just talking about kind of the parallels between this team and the 94 team and the weapons that the 94 team had versus the weapons that, that this team has. And, one of the things that I said was, a lot of people forget how good Ricky Watters was. That's another guy that I think largely gets forgotten about. And, we had Ricky on, earlier this year, which was, incredible. It was a highlight of this season of podcasts. But I looked up Ricky Watters' numbers for that 94 season, just because I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize this, but he only rushed for 877 yards that season and 6 touchdowns. That's not very impressive. But then you go over to receiving. He had 719 receiving yards.
Yeah.
And 5 touchdowns. And he was second on the team in targets. He had 88 targets in the passing game that season. Third was Brent Jones at 72. But first was Jerry Rice with 151 targets. 151 targets in the passing game. And then it was Ricky Watters at 88. Brent Jones at 72, and John Taylor at 64.
Like, oh yeah, Taylor only had, I guess that was to the tail end for him. He only had 41 catches that year, 531 yards.
Yep. But yeah, so and then Waters was also second on the team with yardage at 719, and then Jerry was at 1499 and 13 touchdowns. So but yeah, there's been a lot of impressive running backs in this, in this franchise's history. One guy that already should have been in the Hall of Fame in Roger Craig. One guy that definitely has a Hall of Fame argument, if for no other reason than longevity, in Frank Gore, and production, but longevity for the most part. And Christian McCaffrey, who I think will definitely be a Hall of Famer when his career ends, just based on what he did in Carolina and now what he's doing in San Francisco. Yeah, it's definitely trending that way. It's been an impressive season, but to go back to that idea of him being firmly entrenched in the MVP conversation, if you will, I looked up, there's only been, since 2001, there's only been 4 running backs who have won the MVP, and it's Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson,
Peterson.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson, and I'm missing one. I can't remember who else, but I looked up Tomlinson's MVP year just to try and get an idea of how McCaffrey stacks up. And the year that LaDainian Tomlinson won the MVP, which was 2006, he had 1,815 rushing yards and 28 touchdowns, 28 rushing touchdowns. And then on top of that, he had 56 receptions for 508 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he accounted for 31 touchdowns that season, and 2,323 total yards. So again, an impressive season for McCaffrey, no doubt. Nowhere near the rushing that LaDainian did. As far as touchdowns, what's wild is, he's not going to get to 31, but he is, he has a pretty impressive season. I don't know if it stacks up to other MVP seasons for running backs, but it just, again, goes to show how impressive he has been this season. And I think by a wide margin, he is the best running back in the NFL. He is, I think, now 1 touchdown ahead of Raheem Mostert for most touchdowns this season, which I think is pretty wild for Raheem. But he's widely ahead of him in rushing yards by, I think, 300 yards or so.
Yeah, Terrell Davis was the other running back. I don't
there it is.
Who won it.
Thank you.
And I forgot to mention too, Roger Craig in 1988 won Offensive Player of the Year. And I think McCaffrey, his only competition really is Tyreek Hill. And if Tyreek Hill doesn't break that record, I'm not sure that it's going to be competition. I think it's going to go to McCaffrey because Tyreek Hill's got 12 touchdowns. McCaffrey's going to end up with upwards of 25 and way more all-purpose yards. Obviously, I think McCaffrey's almost might be definitely in his favor for Offensive Player of the Year right now. So it'll go that way.
Yeah.
The other player I want to talk about today, and this is a past 49er, the finalists for the Hall of Fame came out. Patrick Willis is on there again. He's 1 of 15. And I've been talking forever. It's a lot of 49ers fans have that he deserves to be in. He should be in the Hall of Fame. And we had Clark Judge was on the show years ago. It might have been right after Willis retired, actually. But we're talking about his Hall of Fame candidacy. And he was kind of described what the process was a little bit. And he says he looks for a player were they one of their top 2 players in their era at their position. And the argument he made, well, Urlacher's there, Ray Lewis was there, so was Willis. And if you look at the resume, yes, Willis was. So Willis played 8 seasons, and in his 8th season, he played 6 games. So really 7 full seasons. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was a 5-time first-team All-Pro in 7 seasons. So that tells you, yes, he's one of the top 2 guys or whatever at his position. He was a 1-time second-team All-Pro, and he was a 7-time Pro Bowler. And the argument of he didn't play long enough, that's kind of out the window now with Terrell Davis and Calvin Johnson, and it's going to be with Luke Kuechly too, who we'll get in eventually with 8 seasons. But the way they do the Hall of Fame is, unless there's a surefire guy, Jerry Rice, Tom Brady, that you're just not going to argue about, just whatever the guy's in, you don't have to have a discussion. What they do is they have a discussion about each candidate. And I know Matt Mayoko is someone who's in the room, and I know he's has discussions. I know he's one of the reasons Terrell Owens got in. A voter told me that Mayoko did such a good job with Terrell Owens because he presents his case. So, but they'll present the case for Willis, and looking this year might be the year Willis gets in, because they'll put in players like receivers. They'll put in a receiver this year. They just kind of put somebody in the pecking order, whichever one they put in. And Willis has been waiting at linebackers, and we've seen Zach Thomas and Sam Mills and guys who I think Willis should have made it in over.
Yeah,
they've been in that pecking order as well. So this year, Brian, here are the finalists, and I don't know if you could tell me five. I have five that I think are going to get in. Julius Peppers, it's his first year.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Jahari Evans, Dwight Freeney, Antonio Gates. It's his first season being eligible. Rodney Harrison, Devin Hester, Torrey Holt, Andre Johnson, Fred Taylor, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, Darren Woodson. So those are the 15 finalists. Here's my official prediction of who's getting in.
Okay.
I think Jared Allen's going to get in for the pass rushers because it's kind of his turn. He's been on the ballot the longest. I think he'll get in over Freeney and Peppers. Just because I think they're going to put him in. It's his turn. I do think Freeney and Peppers are going to get in eventually. I am going to say Willie Anderson, just because I think they're going to put a lineman in. I think Gates will get in his first time. I think they'll pick a receiver. Mine was Torrey Holt, again, because he's been on the ballot the longest. And I think Willis gets in. I think based on who's there, and because Kuechly is going to be there next year, I think the voters may put him in this year. So he's going to be my fifth prediction. Will I be surprised if he doesn't? No, but I'm going to predict that he does.
I think I agree with all of that. I would say I think they're putting Devin Hester in because he was the best at what he did in NFL history. And so that needs to be acknowledged. And is this his first? Is this Hester's first?
No,
ballot?
I think he's been on the ballot, but someone told me, who I trust with this stuff, how much did he really impact the game? So he's going to get in, but play to play eventually, down to down. How much does someone who's a specialist like that really affect the game? So they may push other guys over him because of that. That's what I was told.
I mean, I understand that. I understand that argument, but to me, again, special teams is a part of the game, right?
Right.
And he is arguably, outside of kicker, the most decorated and impressive special teams player in NFL history in terms of what he did in the return game. And again, I think that maybe not this year, but that will have to be acknowledged eventually. I think what's interesting, you talked about Willis and you gave some of the accolades. His rookie year, he made All-Pro, first team All-Pro. His rookie year. Not only that, but his rookie year, he had 136 solo tackles and 174 combined tackles. His rookie year, he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was 7th in Defensive Player of the Year, his rookie year. And then he was All-Pro. He was first team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. The only year he didn't make the Pro Bowl was the only year that he didn't play a full season. Like, that is wild. That is wild. And then again, like you said, he played 7 full seasons. Of those 7, he was first team All-Pro in 5 of them. 5. And he was second team All-Pro
every year. Yep.
Yeah. He was second team All-Pro in. Nope, he never. Oh, yeah. His
2008
his second year.
Second team.
His second year, he was second team. Every other year, so All-Pro, first team All-Pro, 5 years, second team All-Pro 1 year. Again, just 1 year that he didn't make All-Pro was 2013, but he still made the Pro Bowl. But he only played 14 games that season as well. Although in 2011 he only played 13. Yeah. So
that foot issue, I think it was.
Yeah, which is eventually why he retired. Was his feet. And so, I mean, I don't know, again, if you're talking about was he one of the best one or two at his position? 5 of 7 years, first team All Pro tells you, yes, he was. And so again, longevity kind of goes out the window now that, there are other players that, have kind of bucked that trend. And to play 7 full seasons, make 7 Pro Bowls, 5 first team All Pros, 1 second team All Pro, win defensive player of the year, be on the ballot defensive rookie of the year, be on the ballot for defensive player of the year during your rookie season. Like all of that, I think it just goes to show that, he affected the game incredibly at his position. And still was able to stand out even with another All Pro next to him in Navarro Bowman, which again is impressive in and of itself. So yeah, I don't know what the argument would be outside of he didn't play more than 7 years, but I just don't feel like that's a valid reason for him not to be in.
Yeah, he'll get in eventually. I think with Kuechly going in next year, it's going to muddy the waters a little bit. So I feel like the voters are going to hopefully push him over this time, but we'll see. Oh, you know what I wanted to talk to you about? I totally missed this, and I was just checking Twitter the day after. I did not see that the Niners signed Sebastian Joseph Day. And in the next day I saw it, and I was like, holy shit, that is a great move. They need it right now because they're hurting. Eric Armstead's really banged up. They're hurting right now in the middle. The defense, like we said, the past couple of games, I saw it and I was like, wow, phenomenal move. It was a no-brainer for Joseph Day, he said, to come to the Niners. He is going to help that run defense immensely. Could be a big cog to put in there for a playoff run. I was super excited that they signed him.
Yeah, that's a big signing. What's wild is he was a team captain for San Diego. Gosh dang it. For LA. For the Chargers, the San Diego Superchargers, as Chris Berman used to call them. He was a team captain. He was one of the first signings that Brandon Staley engineered when he came over to the Chargers. Signed him from the Rams, basically as part of his way to install the defense there. Is a plus run defender every year that he's played, and that's exactly what the 49ers need right now, especially with the uncertainty of Eric Armstead and when he will return. And so I think to be able to snag him, nobody claimed him off waivers, which is interesting. We looked up his contract, and he has no guaranteed money next year on his deal. He has one more year left, but there's no guaranteed money. So even if you claimed him off waivers, it's just a prorated portion of his $6.5 million base salary this year. And then he has no guaranteed money next year. So you could theoretically cut him and not incur any dead money. So it's surprising to me that he cleared waivers. And then, but hey, kudos to, again, arguably the best front office, one of the best front offices in the NFL in recognizing, hey, you know what? We don't know what's going on with Eric. Let's get this guy in. He wanted, some people thought maybe he asked LA for his release so that he could compete with a team that is in postseason contention. In which case, kudos to LA for, granting that for a player that, is on, I think he's 32. So, he's not young anymore, and, he wants to compete for another Lombardi. And so I think it's a great move, and it's not necessarily anything that will help against the Commanders this coming Sunday, because the Commanders don't run the ball. They just throw it all over the field, but that's going to be definitely helpful in the postseason, because again, this 49ers team is 11-4 and in the driver's seat for the 1 seed. Like we said at the end of last episode, the sky is not falling. They just got to do what they need to do. And also, I stand corrected from last episode. The 49ers can secure the 1 seed with a victory over Washington, a Cowboys victory over the Lions, and then a Cardinals victory over the Eagles. In my head, I kept thinking Dallas had the same number of losses, but they lost to Miami last week, which gave them 5 instead of 4. So there's still only 3 teams that have 4 losses. So if those other 2 teams lose, and the Niners win, then they secure the 1 seed this coming Sunday. So we've had to do this before. I'm going to say it again. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say go Cardinals, because whatever, I don't care. It's the Cardinals. Go Cardinals. And then I'm going to root for the Lions to lose. I'm not going to root for the other team to beat them.
Yeah, that's the best way to put that, I think.
Yeah.
So Joseph Day is actually only 28.
Oh, okay. Okay. So he is on the younger side.
Yeah, and if he's somebody, again, that fits in, he could, sign him long term or extend or whatever. He's a solid player, man. It's a really good pickup. That's what winning teams do. You grab guys like this for the run. So I was absolutely thrilled when I saw that.
Yeah, so he cleared waivers. They signed him to a 1-year deal because he was a free agent. So that's how it worked.
So this is a get right game against Washington. Every statistic, the eyeball test, whatever you want to say, the Commanders are just, they're a sinking ship. And Ron Rivera's had a really long career in the NFL. He's a dead man walking right now. He's not coming back. He probably has coached his last game, at least as a head coach. But look, dude's coached over 200 games in the NFL. He's 102, 101, and 2 as a head coach. So kind of hope maybe he doesn't win this week, but maybe next week. You don't want to see him fall under 500. He had a winning record at Carolina. He made a Super Bowl, but his time at Washington, like most coaches in Washington, hasn't been good. He's had no winning seasons. Brian, this defense is atrocious.
It's awful.
It's the worst defense in the NFL. They allowed 453 points. That's by a lot. The next closest is 103. And the Jets just hung 30 on them. Now, granted, a lot of short fields. There were a lot of turnovers, but still, it's the Jets. They can't move the ball at all.
Yeah.
They're last in yards, 5,764. Second to last in yards per play at 5.9. Cincinnati is last, which I was kind of surprised to see. I didn't realize their defense was
me too.
That shitty.
Yeah.
They've given up the 31st most, or second to last most passing yards. So the second worst, 3,924. They've given up 33 passing touchdowns, which is the worst. Do you know who's the second worst? Might surprise you.
Passing touchdowns?
Yeah.
I don't. Who?
The Eagles. 31. Can you believe that?
Outstanding.
31 touchdowns they've given up. They have a QB rating of 102.9. That's last. And they've also given up. They do pass, or you can pass on them, but they've also given up 1,840 rushing yards, which is the 10th worst, at 4.5 yards per carry. So opponents have scored 30 plus on them 9 times. And then in 2 other games, they had 28 and 29. In any good game they had under 20, it was all prior to week 8. So probably when they had Sweat and Young. Yeah. And those games that were under 20 were against the Patriots, the Falcons, the Giants, and the Cardinals. So all super, super shitty teams.
Right.
So that defense, man, just so bad. So bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? After the kind of game that Brock Purdy had last week, you kind of actually, like you said, this is a get right game, a defense that allows that kind of those kind of passing numbers. You gotta think that Kyle might come out with a very similar game plan that he did against the Ravens, which is a pass heavy game plan, just simply to try and get Brock some more confidence after, again, by far his worst game as a professional. And and the other thing is this Commanders team, they bench Sam Howell and they're starting Jacoby Brissett, who is, a true vet, if you will, right? Like he's going to protect the ball. But Eric Bieniemy is still going to try and throw the ball over the field. That's what he's been doing all season. I don't anticipate that changing. But what that means is a lot of opportunities for the secondary and pass rush. And just like the Jets, they'll probably have some short fields to work with as well. I don't anticipate any kind of letdown. I think this team is embarrassed and pissed off at the way that they performed against the Ravens. Again, there are some numbers that show that you have to give the Ravens credit for creating turnovers. There's no two ways about that. That's playing good defense. But the 49ers were able to move the ball on that Ravens defense. And, if that offense can do a better job, and specifically, obviously, Brock Purdy can do a better job of taking care of the ball. I think if they do meet again in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't look at that game and be like, man, this is, how are we going to beat this team? They just, absolutely destroyed us, on Christmas. It was, if you turn the ball over that much, it's going to be very difficult to win a game. Right. But if they can take care of the ball, they know that they can move the ball on them. And I think Kyle learned his lesson in terms of getting CMC more involved. And I just think it'll be a different game. But I do think Brock needs a confidence boost. I think he'll get it this week against this really shitty Commanders defense. And, I think this defense needs a bit of a rebound, after, again, short fields, things like that, difficult to, it's going to be difficult to keep any team from scoring. But, the Ravens put up 30 plus on a defense that prides itself on, holding teams under 20. So I think they're going to come out a little bit pissed off as well. And I think that, unfortunately, the Washington Commanders are standing on the tracks when the train's coming through. And so, it's it's probably not going to be pretty.
It's probably not. I mean, not trying to be a homer. I think the Niners are going to, it's going to be really one-sided here. I mean, I just think they're going to come out angry. I think they're going to keep their foot on the gas. I think they're going to absolutely blow this team out. And look, I mean, Commanders they have talent on offense. Terry McLaurin's great. You know, Curtis Samuel's had a good year. I thought Jahan Dotson was going to have a really good season for them. I even jumped for him on one of my fantasy teams, and he's, other than 1 or 2 games, he hasn't done shit this year. Yeah. So that's been a disappointment. And Sam Howell, look, dude was a 5th rounder. So, it's not like he was a bust or a 1st or 2nd rounder. He came in, he started, threw for a lot of yards, 19 TDs, 17 picks, but the numbers probably look better than he actually played. He had some really rough games. And Brissett, I mean, he's, Brissett, like you said, he's a vet. He's played really well when he's coming in relief. He's got 224 yards on 23 attempts and 3 touchdowns, no picks. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, they haven't used a lot, but Robinson's their main running back. They have a rookie named Chris Rodriguez who's done a nice job for them. But this is an offense that's only scored 309 points this year. So again, it's not going to be, I think the Niners are going to score a ton in this game. And I don't see this offense, even if the Niners defense is a bad day and they are banged up, I still don't think they can keep up with the Commanders can keep up with the 49ers offense. They're just the team. Big part of the Ravens having success against the Niners is all the talent the Ravens have. Washington doesn't have that kind of talent.
Yeah. And, again, it's a get right game. And then then you hope that the Cardinals, which, I think that Cardinals Eagles game is most interesting. I think the Cowboys are going to beat the Lions. The Cowboys are playing at home. I think that's going to be the spread on the game. I think the Lions are plus 3.5. I took that plus 3.5 and just a pick 'em on ESPN. I'm taking the 3.5 because I think that game ends with a field goal, but I think it's going to be back and forth in terms of, in terms of a kind of an offensive slugfest, if you will. Because the Cowboys can't stop the run and the Lions will run the ball down your throat if that is a weakness of yours. And so it will limit what the Cowboys can do on offense. But Jared Goff away from Detroit is not great, but this game is in a dome. Indoors, so that bodes well for him. So I do think the Cowboys will pull out the victory, which means that, again, you're hoping for the Cardinals to be feisty against this Eagles team that I still don't think has figured things out. And, they're going against their former defensive coordinator and Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray can do some things, and that defense is not, that Philly defense is not very good right now. And it took everything in them to beat, who was that they beat on Giants. The Giants. The Giants gave them everything they could handle. This Cardinals team, you could argue, is better than the Giants. So you hope for a 49ers victory, which I think is a pretty, I guess, I'm not going to say it's a foregone conclusion any given Sunday, but there's really no reason why they should lose this game.
Absolutely not.
And then maybe you wrap up the number 1 seed by the end of Sunday, and then you can rest some guys and give people two full weeks of
Mm-hmm.
3 full weeks of rest, going into the postseason. So things are looking up even after an embarrassing loss on national television on Christmas Day. But this team is still in a phenomenal position for the postseason, for the Super Bowl run. And I think we see, 35 or more points put on Washington this Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. You have to win 5 more games. You win these next 2 in the regular season, you get the bye, and then you win your next 3 and you bring the chip home. That's the mindset. Just come out, win the next 5. It's just this is the stretch run, man. This is where it is. Put last week beside, put it in the back of your head. It's over. Now start playing good football again. Start this week with Washington. Beat the Rams, because that is going to be a difficult game. Unless, like you said, maybe the Rams are locked into a playoff seed and they just don't play their starters, or they take Stafford out or whatever. If they go balls to the walls, it's going to be a really difficult game. I understand Kyle owns McVay in the regular season anyway, but it's going to be tough. And then, you get into the playoffs, which in a conference where you've proven that you're probably head and shoulders the best team. And probably they are. I mean, the other 2 teams, you would argue, Dallas and Eagle, they kick shit out of them. And Detroit, we'll see, but Detroit doesn't have much of a defense. You would think the Niners wouldn't have an issue there either, especially if they have to come to San Francisco. Yep. They've had success against Jared Goff. So by far and away in the conference, and then if you get to the Super Bowl, we'll worry about that then. But this is where it starts, man. Foot on the gas.
Yeah. And like you said, it's just they need another 5-game winning streak. They started the season with a 5-game winning streak. They lost 3 games. Then they went on a 6-game winning streak. Then they lost on Monday. So now they just need another 5-game winning streak to bring home a Lombardi. And we already know they've been able to do that twice this season. So this team is more than capable of doing it. And, they're largely healthy, going into this. I think Trent Williams is on track to play. The biggest loss is Eric Armstead, but bringing Sebastian Joseph Day in really offsets that loss. So again, they're largely healthy. They're coming off a loss that probably really motivated them and angered them, and I just think they're in a really good spot. And I'm just excited for this stretch run into hopefully the second Sunday in February.
All right. The spread is 12.5. I think the Niners cover that. I'm going to say 38-20 because the Commanders score a late touchdown.
Yeah, I agree. I had to pick this game, same pick 'em. The spread was 13.5 because that's what it opened at, and I still took 13.5. So
good save.
Yeah, I'm going to say same thing. I'm going to say 38. But I'll say that I'm going to say 38-17 San Francisco.
All right, there you have it. We're getting back on track this week.
Yes, we are.
Brian.
Happy New Year to you as well. Huh?
When's the game?
The game is Sunday morning at 10. The game is Sunday morning at 10 a.m. my time. Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. your time.
That's the 30th. No, what is it? New Year's Eve?
It's New Year's Eve. It's New Year's Eve. Yeah.
All right. So I don't know when we're going to record. So Happy New Year if I don't talk to you.
Yes. Happy New Year to you as well. Happy New Year to our listeners. We will be back after the game and we will recap it. But yeah, hey, the sky's not falling. 49ers still in the 1 seed. It's almost time for playoff football. It's the best time of the year.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. All right, for Brian, I'm Al.
Later.
Niners on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hey!
2400 Sports is an Odyssey company.